Hello, friends. Today we're continuing our study of geometry, and today we're going to be looking at the midpoint formula. However, I want a quick caveat. If you saw in like the progression that there was investigation one, you're like, I don't feel like doing the investigation. Go back and do it because there are important points there that we learned about parallel lines, transversals, relationships between angles that are important. Consider it another lesson. It is important. Go back and do the investigation if you didn't. See, I wrote it in red, which means I'm serious about this. So, on to today's lesson. We're going to be looking at the midpoint formula. So, let's start off simple. And we're just going to ask ourselves, what is the coordinate of the point midway between N and E in this diagram? So, let's take a look. Here's N and here's E. All right. So, I mean, this is simple, but we're starting off with something simple so we can kind of draw the principle and the formula out of it. So, N to E, start 0 to 4. So we know the midpoint is going to be here. That's actually an O. It looks like a triangle, but it's at point 2. Hmm. Well, how did we get that? Well, let's think about how do we get, 0 and 4, 2. Again, we can just kind of like count and then go to the middle, and that works here. But also take note of this, that another way of getting that number is if we say 4 plus 0 divided by 2, it's kind of like we're taking the average of the 2 points. Okay, and then that gives us the coordinate 2. What about T and G? Okay, well, T is over here, and G is over here. Now, it looks like the midpoint is probably going to be somewhere between 0 and 1, like 0.5, right? Again, we know that. So let's test out this formula that we came up with, kind of the idea of taking the average of the 2 points. And let's see what we get. Okay, so the coordinate of G is 3. The coordinate of T is -2, and then divide by 2. So what's going to happen now? Well, 3 plus -2 is 1, and then we divide by 2, we get 1/2. And so the coordinate of the midpoint is 0.5. When it comes to just a single line like this, a number line, then the formula for the midpoint is, we call it, if this is like an x-axis, right? So it's x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That's it, right? Now let's take this and apply it two-dimensionally. All right, so if we have a line, something like this, it's two-dimensional, where would the midpoint be? We can think of this like splitting this up, same way we had done before, right? We kind of use the Pythagorean theorem for the distance formula. So now the same kind of thing. Let's split up the vertical and the horizontal. So we can find the horizontal middle, same way we were doing before, right? We can find, so we know this goes horizontally. Let me do this actually in green, different color, right? We're going from here over to here, right? So the midpoint is going to have a horizontal coordinate of the middle of this, right? Between -3 and 1. So we're going to do -3 plus 1 divided by 2. Let's see, what does that give us? So -3 plus 1 is -2. So it's -2 over 2. So -1. I'm getting this coordinate, and that looks right. Okay, so up from there. So this is going to have an x coordinate of -1. And then vertically, I'm going from here, which is -1, up to 2. Okay, and same kind of idea. I'm taking the average of the two y coordinates. So I'm going to add them together. So 2 plus -1 over 2. Well, 2 plus -1 is just 1. So it's 1/2. So it's right here. This is 1/2. And so that's what we get. And so our answer is that the midpoint has coordinates of -1, comma, 1/2. That's it. It's very simple. All we're doing really is, again, finding the average of the horizontal coordinates, the average of the vertical coordinates. You can think about it that way. Uh, and that's it. That gives us what the midpoint is. And we have a formula. We want to develop a formula for this. So we can then plug anything else into it. Again, though, um, the point of the formula is so we have something easy to refer to. It should be undergirded with understanding. You don't want to just memorize formulas. It's not a good way to do math. You want to appreciate it that way. It'll just be frustrating. You really want to work on the understanding here. And so as you're taking notes, that's what I want you to think about, right? What's the reason behind this? And when you're taking notes, it's not just about copying down what I'm writing. This is what I tell my students. Imagine so your future self is studying for a test, and your future self is looking back at your notes, and you're looking at like some problem that was done, and you're like, wait, well, how did I get from this step to this step? There's no explanation here. It's just written there. You know, my past self just copied what the teacher said without actually explaining anything to me. You say, darn you, past self. Why didn't you explain this problem to me? You were stingy in your effort, and now I'm paying the price. Or if you take the time and explain things because you know your future self better than anybody else, you know what questions your future self is going to have, most likely. And so you can do a favor to your future self and explain everything so that someday when you're studying, your future studying self can look back and say, oh, that's what was happening here. Thank you, past self, for taking such clear notes and explaining everything to me. So when you're taking notes, um, take notes in a way that your future self is going to thank you, right? Make decisions that your future self will thank you for. That's just general good advice, I think. Um, So enough about my sermon on note taking. Let's get back to this. So the formula that we come up with here, then, the midpoint formula looks like this. It's just x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. That's it. So if you just plug in the two x coordinates divided by 2, the two y coordinates divided by 2, that gives you the x and the y coordinates of the midpoint of the line. So I hope that was helpful, and reflect on what I was saying about the notes and how you make decisions anyway in general, and making decisions that your future self will thank you for. To bring it to another level, if you're up for it, make decisions that your dying self will thank you for. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.